Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Amber Nestor. I'm the firm owner and founder of Tennessee landandhomestore.com. Right now making this video, it's about 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time, August 26th, 2026. And the topic of today's video, or this might be my second video today, I'm not sure honestly, but the topic of this video is please stop being afraid of water and hills. Let's talk serious about excavation and dirt work, site prep and construction. Okay, I cannot tell you, as a land and development expert throughout my career, having listed and sold many millions of dollars in property over the years, both on and off market, all over the eastern half of Tennessee, and helping people research property in middle and west Tennessee as well. How many times I have encountered scenarios where potential buyers were working with an agent and they were thinking about either buying raw land or buying home with acreage, and they were scared to buy a particular property because they noticed a patch of wet grass in the yard that was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Or there was a creek in some section of the yard. Or the land, God forbid, had some hills or gently rolling topography, okay? And this was scary to them. And a lot of times, excuse me, a lot of times it's scary to people because maybe they're moving to East Tennessee from like a place that's pancake flat. Like where I was born in southern Louisiana, it was below sea level and everything was pancake flat, okay? And when you don't have any experience with construction and you don't have any experience with curves, you don't understand. You don't have any education in that area. And so one of the things that I really highly recommend people do is don't even go look at property until you have vetted and picked out who's going to build this structure you're imagining in your mind. Whether it's, a big building with Summertown metals, or it's a house, or it's a garage, or it's a workshop, or it's a warehouse, or whatever it's going to be, you need to spend some time getting educated by someone who actually understands dirt work, okay? Because you could be passing up the opportunity of a lifetime because you saw a damp spot in part of a 7.75 acre property that scared you because you don't understand how excavation and construction works, right? And I don't say this to be like, I don't want anyone to be offended by this, but it is very, very frustrating to be a professional, to understand how these things work, and to constantly come across scenarios throughout many years of my career where, I'm getting feedback from an agent, from a buyer on a property that maybe I have listed, right? And it's expressing concern about excavation, water, moisture, topography that's just probably not even an issue at all. And they're spending money and they're traveling to properties and they're missing work and they're investing all this time and expense into going and looking at property. And the person they need to have looking at property with them is their excavator, is their builder, is their site prep person. So it's just a very frustrating thing when you're representing a lot of listing clients, like I often do. If I went back and looked at my entire body of work throughout my career, the majority of clients that have hired me are sellers, property owners, listing clients. I've worked with lots of buyers, almost the same number. Well, I'd say, if I was going to give it a ratio, listing clients to buying clients, I'd say the large majority is listing clients by far. But, that means I'm dealing with enormous amounts of feedback from agents for buyers. When a buyer has signed a contract, okay, with a buyer's agent. I'm, as the listing client in this imaginary scenario, am not legally allowed to talk to the buyer, to educate them, to speak to them, to inform them about anything. I have to do all communications through their agent. If the agent that they have is not knowledgeable about excavation, water, soil, site prep, construction, development, that could be a real problem. They might pass up properties that could literally be the opportunity of a lifetime because their agent has not encouraged them to consult with a professional expert to advise them about excavation. Okay, so it's very frustrating. It's just very, very frustrating as a professional seeing this be an obstacle for clients over the years. You know, and it's just a lack of knowledge. It's a knowledge gap. It's an education gap. It's an experience gap. Because I've focused my career on a lot of raw land and development and construction, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many excavators I have befriended over the years, consulted with over the years, met with in person over the years, walked property with over the years. Probably one of the largest properties I ever hiked with an excavator was it was about 97 acres. We spent deep hiking in the woods, me and this excavator guy. We spent like an hour hiking that property, looking at the topography, talking about the soil, talking about the water lines, talking about the water table, talking about what was possible, what was potential, where would we put the roads, where would we put the houses, etc., etc. You know, and this is something that these kinds of experiences that I have really make me a valuable asset to both buyers and sellers alike. Because a lifetime of experience like this puts me in a position to understand what's possible and to understand how to quickly confirm what's possible. So let's say you're a very cautious person and you're very new to building anything, but you know you want to build something. And you are just so scared that even though you've walked the property with your builder and your excavator, you're just so scared that something's going to go wrong. Well, there's ways to solve this, and it's called science. It's called science. And what you do, there's several types of tests you can get done. The first thing I would recommend you get is called a soil map. So just imagine that you draw a shape over a piece of land and you hire a soil map scientist and you say, Mr. Soil Map Scientist, I need you to provide me a soil map, okay? That's the first thing I would recommend. Usually they're around, I don't know, $300 to $500 if it's a reasonably small section of land, okay? Another thing, maybe more, maybe less, depending on who's doing it. Similar prices for septic permits. If you're looking at putting in a structure that's going to need a septic permit, then start with the septic permit. And if the septic permit guy, most counties have like one main person that does all their septic permitting analyses, okay? Start with the septic permit guy. And if he comes back and says, I need a soil map, because sometimes they don't, and in rare situations they do. If he comes back and says, I need a soil map, then you find a soil map scientist guy, and you're like, hey, soil map scientist guy, you draw the little shape on the diagram, and you go, I need a soil map for that section of the diagram. And he's like, okay. And he goes out there and he creates it for you. And then you give that to the septic permit guy. And then the septic permit guy goes, okay, here's what I'll let you do. Most of the time you're going to get what you want, statistically, throughout my career. Most of the time, almost actually every single time that I can think of, that I can remember, my clients got what they wanted. There were a couple times when buyers wanted something that was kind of like really abnormally above and beyond. And they came back and said, with a traditional system, this is not possible. But with a customized system or maybe some excavation, then it's probably doable, okay? So even though they didn't get their first ask, there was a solution presented, a path to get what it is that they wanted, all right? I have been out to properties that were waterfront and that were zoned by FEMA, saying that if you put a house there, you would have to pay for extra flood insurance risk, and went out there with excavators and builders and talked to insurance agents, and they said, oh yeah, we can build a house here and not have to have extra flood insurance. We just move some dirt around. Pretty simple. We just shape the earth to the shape we need it to be. You know, whether that's moving earth that's already there or bringing in earth from somewhere else. So there was a path to do the thing that someone wanted to do. There's almost always going to be a path to doing the thing that you want to do. And a lot of times that path is so simple and so cheap, it's like not even a big deal. So again, I'm just encouraging people, don't make decisions out of fear and ignorance when you're deciding on property. Consult with the actual person that's an expert in that field. If you see a spot of moisture on a piece of land and that scares you, don't be afraid. Talk to a builder and an excavator. Say, here's what I'm envisioning. Visit the property with me. Create a quote. Explain to me the plan. How do we achieve this? Is there risk involved? What's the level of risk? What's the cost involved? And then another thing that people really need to look at is, let's say you're considering buying 2 properties, okay? And one is already flat, but it costs more, all right? And it visibly looks dry on the day you visit it. The other property is lots more acreage. It's way cooler. There's one damp spot noticeable in the yard. And the land has some gentle curves, okay? It's also a way better price, all right? All factors considered. The difference in excavation costs between those 2 properties is probably so incredibly small that it's inconsequential. And so the better investment may have been the cheaper property with more acreage that had the tiny wet spot in the yard. Because the excavator and the soil scientist and the builder are going to be like, oh yeah, that's like literally no big deal, guys. No big deal. All right. Another test that you can have done is called a perk test. Another test you can have done is called a core sampling. And that's exactly what it sounds like. Imagine if you took a straw, like you would drink a milkshake, only it's like bigger than a straw, and you just shove that into the earth to a certain depth. And then you find out what is there. Another thing a lot of people don't know about is injection wells. You know, so a regular well that most people think about when they hear about a well is when a hole is drilled into the earth to tap into a water table such that water can be brought up to the surface and then used for some sort of purpose. Well, they also have injection wells, and this is when you drill a hole in the earth for the purpose of injecting things into the earth and getting them to absorb into the sponge that is the earth at a better, more effective pace for the goal that needs to be achieved. Where there is a will, there is a way. It's all about learning what's possible, learning what level of risk, if any, there is, and learning what the cost analysis is. That's it. But please, don't be afraid of water and hills. It's what makes East Tennessee great. It's what makes life possible. Water's everywhere. Water's everywhere. It's the only way life can exist. And people are so scared of it. And there never has to be a fear or an unknown about any piece of property that you ever buy. So, anyway, I hope this helped you learn something new about construction, excavation, development, soil, science, water, hills. Don't be afraid of them. I'll leave you with a couple more little tidbits and stories. where I used to live in the mountains, there was a couple of properties that I really loved. There was one that was a cabin built on stilts type of a style, literally in the middle of a river, okay? In the middle of a river, all right? Super cool property. It's an Airbnb, or it used to be an Airbnb last time I checked. I've always wanted to stay there. Maybe one day when I have time, maybe if I have some time before I'm dead, I'll get a chance to go stay out there. I'm always so busy, but it's beautiful just to drive by and look at. It was built intentionally as like an experience property. And it's super, super cool. There was another home up in the mountains around the area where I used to live that was a historic home and cabin that was built over a creek. So the home was built like up on stilts and a creek ran underneath it. And in the old days, what the family did that lived there was they had a hole cut in their floor and they could lower a bucket on a rope down into the creek and pull water right up into their kitchen. Just the point of this is just don't be afraid of water, people. Don't be afraid of water. If you see a little bit, it doesn't mean that all hope is lost. It rains all over the earth. There is water almost everywhere under the surface. This is how like life exists. If you go to a property and all of the acreage is waterlogged, yeah, you need to be a little concerned there. That could be a problem that's so vast, it's like not practical or feasible, most likely, for you to deal with, okay? That could be a level of risk that is extreme. But if you're looking at a big acreage property and there's just one little damp area, that's just how the earth looks. And not necessarily any problem or obstacle whatsoever. Consult your experts. Again, I'm an agent. I've worked with these types of experts many, many times. I am not a soil scientist. I am not an excavator. Hopefully I will be soon though. I am not a builder, but I've worked with these types of people many, many times in my career. Explore what's possible. Don't let someone who is lacking experience fill you with fear about water and hills. Have a great day. Check back next time. Thanks for listening.